Hey book lovers, Kaylee here and welcome back to the Enchanted Library, and I'm going to show you the books that I picked up in July. At the end of June, I set up a little challenge for myself to only purchase 2 books in the month of July, and I kind of failed at that challenge, and I ended up getting 5 books, including my Owl Crate subscription book. So, I mean, I didn't go too overboard like I do most months, but just you wait for August. That's going to be a big haul. But for now, I have 5 books, so let's dive in. Book number 1 is one of my most anticipated reads for 2018, and that is The Loneliest Girl in the Universe by Lauren James. This book came out right at the start of July, and I immediately went out the day it released to pick it up because I had been waiting months for it. And the first store that I went to did not have it, and they were going to be closing soon, so I had rushed to get there. And so I thought, well, you know what, let's see if I can rush across the city and try and get to the other store before it closes. And thankfully I did, and they had it, and it was sitting on my shelves all month because I decided to use this for my booktubeathon TBR. If you don't know what this book is about, it follows Romy, or Rami, and she is the only girl on this ship. She did have a crew, her parents were on the ship, that's where she was born, but everybody died. So she is left alone on the ship for years, basically fending for herself and being on her way to Earth 2 to help repopulate humanity and start afresh. Whilst on her ship, the only form of communication that she has is with her therapist on Earth, until that is, a ship starts communicating with her who recently launched and is going to be meeting up with her ship. So this book takes place in space, which is amazing, and it also deals with some anxiety as well as it's a thriller, and I'm just super excited to pick up and read this book. The next book that I picked up is not a new one, and I feel like a lot of people have read it, and one of my friends had been trying to get me to read it for years, and that is A Discovery of Witches by Deborah Harkness. And this book, I don't really know a whole heck of a lot about it. I know that there are witches, I know that there are werewolves, and it's just a whole world in this one book, and I just hear that it's amazing, and I know that it was on one of my TBRs for a very long time that I wanted to pick it up, and now I finally picked it up, and I kind of have to read it because I did see the trailer for the TV show, and I need to read this before I watch the TV show because let's face it, I am going to watch it. So I'm excited to read this one, but for the most part, I'm happy going into this essentially blind. I know that there is basically this underground world of witches, and there's obviously political gains in regards to that, and also just fear and this whole other world, basically. So I am excited to delve into that world and learn all about it, and most of the books in this series are already out, so I don't really have to wait if I really get invested in this. So I'm excited to read this. I'm not sure when I'm going to get to it, but I am pumped. The next book that I picked up is a nonfiction book, and it is The Lost City of Zedd by David Grann. The reason that I picked up this book is, well, A, it really intrigued me and I've been wanting to read it for a little while, but B, it worked out for one of the challenges for Booktubeathon, wherein you had to read a book and then watch the film adaptation. And I remember hearing about the film adaptation a couple of years ago, so I figured I would pick this up. I actually got this on audiobook as well, but it follows the story of Colonel Fawcett and his attempts at finding the lost city of Zedd in the Amazon. It covers basically his entire adulthood in trying to find this city and what he had to deal with his family and being out in the wild, and it's fascinating, all of the things that would be going into this story. David Grann is a writer who ended up coming across Colonel Fawcett's life story and just became super invested in it, and he decided to make his own pilgrimage to try and figure out what exactly happened to Colonel Fawcett when he went missing. And it's just super cool and interesting, and I have already read it, so I'm going to talk more about it in my Booktubeathon wrap-up, but this was another book that I picked up. The next book that I picked up is one that is newly on my radar, but because the trailer earlier this year came out for the Netflix movie, I've just been really interested in it. So I decided to pick it up and read it because August is when the movie comes out, so I needed to read it again before the film. And the title is a mouthful, so just bear with me. It is the Guernsey Literary and Potato Peel Pie Society by Mary Ann Schaefer and Annie Barrows. And Mary Ann and Annie are actually aunt and niece, and I just think that is so cool that they collabed and wrote this story together. And the really interesting way that this story is written is that it's all in correspondence. So it's in letter format and it's in telegrams, and it's just, there's no chapters, there's nothing like that. It's just all in letter format, and flipping through it like that, you did not get a glimpse of any of it, but I just was really intrigued to pick up this book and read it. It was one that I wanted to read for the Booktubeathon for the same challenge of The Lost City of Zedd, because this was honestly my first choice, but the movie didn't come out until after the Booktubeathon would have been done, so I couldn't use it, but I still really wanted to read it, so I picked it up. And again, this is one that I have already read, so I'll talk about it more in my wrap-up, but it follows the story of Juliet Ashton, and she is an authoress in England. She ends up being connected to a group of people on Guernsey Island, and how they came across her through this really interesting story that happened to them during the occupation of Germany when they were in Guernsey. And it sounds like such a heartfelt story and just absolutely beautiful, and I was super excited because it's going to be intertwining the life of Juliet, the author, as well as this society on the island that had no communication with the outside world for like 4 or 5 years, which is insane, but this is just their story and how they all come together and what comes of it. And so I couldn't not pick it up. And the last book is the book that I got in my July Owl Crate, which had the theme of strange and unusual, and I did not guess what the book was, which is shocking to me, but I should have known because it was My Plain Jane by the Lady Janies, and that is Cynthia Hand, Brodie Ashton, and Jodi Meadows. And this is a retelling of Jane Eyre. The cool thing about this retelling is that A, it is paranormal, and B, Charlotte Bronte is actually a character, and C, it breaks the fourth wall. And I'm just so happy that this ended up being the book that came in the Owl Crate, because I clearly did not have any idea just how much was in this book, because the clues that they gave in our June Owl Crate, I had no idea that this is what this book was. And I am so happy with this cover. I really love the original cover, but I think to stay on like the spooky, strange, and unusual sort of theme, the green and the purple work really, really well together. And this copy is signed by all of the authors as well. And the way that this story lays out Jane Eyre is that Jane is actually friends with Charlotte, and Charlotte wants to write a story all about her friend Jane. The thing about Jane, though, is that she is not happy with where she's at. She wants to end up finding a husband and settling down, having kids, and maybe becoming a governess. But Jane has a secret of her own, and that is that she can see and speak to the dead. This is when we enter our other POV, which is Alexander, and he is a ghost hunter, essentially. So these three end up coming together in a very strange series of events, and it's just a wild ride, and I had a lot of fun reading this book because, as you can guess, I have already read it, but I got it in July, so it is part of my haul. I will get into it a little bit more with my thoughts in my wrap-up, but if you have any idea what Jane Eyre is about, imagine that with a bit of a paranormal twist and a lot of humor, and that is this book. So those are the 5 books that I picked up in July. If you have read any of these books, or if any of these books seem interesting to you, be sure to leave a comment in the description down below because I would love to hear your thoughts. And if you've liked this video, please be sure to click that like button and subscribe to my channel for more videos. I do put out new videos every weekend, and also some sprinkled throughout the week if I do have some extras, because sometimes that does happen. And until next time, keep reading.